Hey, LC Youth. I want to give you a recap. I know many of you with school or sickness missed last night, so I want to let you know what we covered in week 3 of Baewatch. We tackled the big question, what is love? So we talked about how there are different things we say we love. I love Taco Bell. I love Dr. Pepper. I love Mountain Dew. I love coffee. And really how that word itself really gets overused in our society. With the guys, we briefly talked about how there's a difference between love and lust. Lust deals with what it can take. Love deals with what it can give. And so we talked about how real love is giving. And so we looked in the Bible's definition of love, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. And if you read that verse, those verses, you see that love really is giving. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious, is not boastful or proud. Love believes all things, endures all things, hopes all things, love never fails. And so that is really a giving love. And so we talked about how instead of overusing that word love, that we should really start living a biblically defined love in our relationships with others. And so to conclude our time together, we talked about 4 Greek words for love, and we talked about how each of those words should affect our relationships with other people. The first word we talked about is agape love. This is a powerful and noble love, a sacrificial love. We see this love displayed in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. And so we see that God's demonstration of this love was the sacrifice of Jesus, and Jesus' demonstration of this love was laying down himself. And so we should also be sacrificial in living towards others. The second type of love we talked about is phileo love, brotherly love, a love between two people that have common interests and experiences. And in 1 John chapter 4, verse 21, John wrote, "And the commandment we have from him is this, that the one who loves God should love his fellow Christian too." And so we talked about this idea that we should develop this in our relationships, not just with someone we're attracted to, but with people in general, that we should show a brotherly love and a concern for one another. The third type of love we talked about that we find in the New Testament is storge love, an affectionate love that expresses itself in deep affection, a longing to be with somebody, or an aching to be with somebody. And we talked about how that love really is seen in as you're progressing towards a marriage relationship. Genesis 2:24 says, "This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one." The idea that a man and a woman want to be together, they can't imagine life apart, and that's the type of love that is expressed. And so, generally speaking, most middle school or high school students haven't felt that level of love. You may have thought you did, but then if you aren't with that person anymore, then obviously you didn't. But it's a love that is reserved for that progression towards marriage. The fourth type of love you don't see in the New Testament, but is a Greek word for love, is eros, a passionate or sexual love, the type of love that is only intended by God to be expressed between a husband and a wife. And we talked about the importance of being careful in protecting ourselves from awakening that love too early. We took the Song of Songs, chapter 2, verse 7, chapter 3, verse 5, chapter 8, verse 4, that says, "Promise me, O women of Jerusalem, not to awaken love until the time is right." So we talked about the time that God has is the perfect time. The person that God has is the right person. And if you experiment with eros love without having agape love, phileo love, and storge love, then you're just dealing in lust. But when you combine all of those all those forms of love together, they will be the foundation and be expressed in a strong marriage relationship. And we encouraged everyone with this final statement: God has a perfect plan for your future marriage. He has a design. When you follow God's plan and God's timing, your future marriage can be something incredible, reserved for just you and your future spouse. So my encouragement for this week, as you define what is love, define love the way the Bible defines love. Take 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7, and commit those to memory and commit those to being a way that you express love. As you are young, work on showing sacrificial love in relationships. Work on showing that brotherly love in relationships. And when God's timing is right, that storge love, that eros love, is going to fall into place in a marriage relationship at the right time. And so I'd encourage you, don't follow the standard of the world that wants to try and just take. Express love in what you can give, and especially sacrificially towards others. So I hope you are encouraged this week. Hope to see you next week for a final week of Baewatch. Invite a friend, bring them with you, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.